Welcome to the Wolverine Digest podcast, the best spot for objective, authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Brandler.
I just want to start by saying go blue. Happy Wednesday, everybody. We are back for another edition of the Wolverine Digest podcast. And I don't know,
dude, that was like the most podcast intro ever. Welcome back for another Wednesday edition of the Wolverine Digest podcast. Thank you for joining.
That's what I was going for. I inadvertently did it. You know, we were discussing some different things, some business expenditures, some decision making. I had a pearl necklace. I mean, we had.
Oh, your Sans pearl necklace now.
Yeah, I
think you should put it back on, Brandon.
I like it, but I don't know if I like it with the athletic shirt.
Okay.
Like if I was in more of a, I mean, dude.
Now, just so, because it could trick the eye, it could pass off as possibly diamonds because I can't really tell. You're saying those are pearls?
They're pearls.
Okay.
Oh, yep. It's it's a little bit of a fad thing right now, but I felt like
pearls are back. Pearls are back.
Oh, they're back. They're back big in a big way. Throw that on with a couple other chains, dude. You really start to accessorize. I can't do a beard, Chris. I have beard envy. So this region right here, I've got to doctor it up somehow. It can't just be double chin by itself, dude. I gotta have something else.
Yeah.
So, anyway, speaking of double chin, Chris, Jesus Christ, we talked about this before. Some of the photos that we've seen of ourselves. I'm not going to put the one up that I screenshotted of you. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
Throw it up, Brandon. Throw it up. Let the people see.
You want it up there?
Put it up. Put it up. Throw it up, Brandon.
This is what 11 miles an hour looks like.
I'm putting myself out there. Look at your boy.
Good God.
Here. Look at your boy. Okay.
I can't leave it up there for very long.
That's all natural.
Wow. Chris was taking the hoodie off before we started recording, and I was quick to jump on the screenshot.
Yeah, how about that? How about that from your partner? Your boy's over here sweating a little hot. Try to take the sweatshirt off, and I get a screen grab of me taking my shirt off.
Oh, let's not.
That's foul play.
Let's not kid ourselves. There was a little bit of posturing going on. He was peacocking a little bit over there. It wasn't like you were trying to dodge the camera here, sir. I wish we had video. We could look at the footage and make a judgment call. No, but anyway, what I was going to say before we get into our fan led, anybody who has questions, you can start firing them off now. But what I was going to say was that I went to the chiropractor today for my 1 year checkup where I had to get photos from the front, from the side, different.
Oh
again,
God!
Oh, dude, again, just a depressing display.
Isn't it incredible how photos of yourself never match up with your self-image? You see yourself as a certain way, right?
I mean, I'm looking at myself live and in color right now. I don't look like those photos.
Well,
who took those?
But this is from a certain angle. We've made sure it's at the angle that we want. Things look the way we want. But when we're out there in the wild, that's like that famous footage of the Bigfoot walking through the forest, turning and looking.
Man, dude, strategically placed microphone just enough to hide the double chin. Oh,
dude, Listen, I had to pull my V-neck back so far. It's it's to the middle of my back in the back here. If I had to, the V, it's just
you had to pull it so far back that you've got a normal crew neck in the front, a U-neck in the back.
It's like one of those low-cut dresses in the back.
Yeah, it's a what do they call that? A racer back?
A ball gown?
Is that? Am I? Whew.
Solid start to the show, though.
We're just getting started. We're already off the rails. I don't know if we're going to be able to bring it back. All right, let's go back and see if we have any questions yet. A lot of comments so far, not too many questions. Okay, real quick. What are you sipping on tonight, there, Mr. Breiler?
A little bit of Chardonnay with some ice cubes in it. No big deal. Just par for the course. That's what I like to do on a Wednesday evening.
There we go.
And Devin, a Thursday evening, and a Friday evening, and a Saturday evening.
Devin, unfortunately, no RV again this week. Look, we are trying to figure out something with Rosie. We don't want to let her sit there all season long, but if something does come up, it will probably be for one of the bigger games, maybe a road game that's a little bit closer to home, so we're not, stranded anywhere. But we definitely, I mean, Chris and I, more than anybody, we want to put her to use. We want to get out there on the road. We want to get that rolling billboard getting on down the highway. It's just, dude, we're scared. We're flat out scared of being stranded again and having to spend a bunch of money if something doesn't work out correctly.
That's true. I will say this. I did get a message earlier from Wolverine State Brewing Company. I'm not sure how much is there, but it is back. So if you are in Ann Arbor, if you're at Wolverine State Brewing Company, which is not too far from the stadium, and you want to stop on by and get yourself some Winged Helmet beer, it's back. It's back.
Rob, it's been a dad bod year, gentlemen. Ladies can either get with it or get lost. That's what I'm
saying. Rob Lucio, damn it, that's where we're at. You can either get with the program or hit the bricks. Okay,
you better get right or get left. That's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying. And yes, Travis Kinchin, Rosie is mechanically sound. I've had her out on the road. She's running just fine.
I didn't even realize it was Zach. B-Saw, get out of here, dude. I'm like, did someone really see us at the casino? I was like, I was there. It's okay. That's my friend Zach.
Listen,
hi, Zach.
If you're at a casino, there's a solid chance you'll see Brandon somewhere there.
That's very possible. That's very possible. All right. Well, that was a great show. Since there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and
appreciate it.
7 minutes in.
Cue the outro.
Chris, we can talk some stuff, ask questions, get ready to roll in. Today, I went to the press conference, had a chance to talk with Grant Newsome, tight ends coach, and also Mike Elston, defensive line coach. And I will say, it was a little bit of a snoozer out there. I mean, I think Grant Newsome, especially, still certainly trying to find his way as a coach. Super bright dude. I think his guys like him a lot. He's probably got a really high upside. But when it comes to answering questions, pretty by the book. Pretty straightforward, pretty vanilla. I did think that Mike Elston said some good stuff. I thought it was cool. I didn't even realize this. He was roommates with Bowling Green's head coach, Scott Loeffler, at Michigan. So that's kind of a neat thing. I know Jim Harbaugh earlier this week, talked about his dad and his mom's history. They both went to Bowling Green. I didn't know that either. So there's a lot of connections right specifically this week with Michigan and Bowling Green, and Michigan's still favored by again. I think it's been north of 35 all three of these opening weeks, which obviously that's pretty lopsided. But I did find it cool today talking to Mike Elston about he's been at Notre Dame. He's had some really good players there. He said that right now at Michigan is by far the most talented depth defensive front seven, front four, whatever you want to say that he's ever had. That's not exactly surprising when you think about what he's got to work with, but he was very open and very forthright in saying that. And then he was obviously asked about them, but some of the stuff that he said, dude, about Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham just makes you realize, like, dude, these dudes are both just true sophomores, kind of talking about their upside and what they're so good at, what they're still getting better at. Like, how good does Mike Elston have it, and how good is that duo right now, man, when you think about Michigan's interior D-line?
Yeah, I mean, they're loaded across the board. They're once again one of the top defensive units in the country, and I would think it is a pleasure to coach those guys. And you look at the way the first 2 weeks went, I mean, they're not very far from pitching shutouts for, and I get it. Points count, points are points, but at the end of the day, it's been tough sledding against this Michigan defense, especially that defensive front, and would expect more of the same. It just feels like, don't you kind of get the sense, Brandon, that everybody's just sort of and this happens. I guess this is one of the the caveats of having a good team that has championship aspirations, until you play somebody that the fan base and national media deems legitimate, the interest level is pretty much low. It does. JJ McCarthy is a perfect example. If you look at his play, his production, how efficient he's been, it's been incredible. And you've got analysts that are talking about, you had a former NFL coach that said, I haven't seen guys in the league. I had quarterbacks that couldn't do this against air, be that efficient. And the general sense from the fan base and from, people around the country is, well, it's UNLV. Well, it's ECU. And I mean, so I think Bowling Green is going to be more of the same. But to answer your question, yeah, I would think Mike Elston's pretty happy with what he's got at Michigan on the defensive front. And I would expect that I'll be surprised if Bowling Green puts up more than 7 points Saturday night.
Yeah. Basically, they have pitched shutouts. I mean, in my opinion, call a timeout to kick a field goal at the end of the first one last week, a garbage time touchdown. I mean, the defense has been super stout. Credit Mike Elston, credit certainly Jesse Minter, and obviously the guys. I mean, they're deep, man. They've got too deep everywhere up front, linebacking core. It's hard to take any of those guys off the field. We haven't even seen a full complement of players in the secondary, not even close. Will Johnson has played 8 snaps. Makari Page has played 10, and Rod Moore has not seen the field yet. Those are arguably your 3 best defenders in the secondary. Actually, no, it's not even arguable. Those are your 3 best players in the secondary, with the 4th guy still maybe trying to figure that out a little bit, that cornerback spot opposite Will Johnson. Josh Wallace has played well. Mikey Sainer still. He's certainly in that discussion as well as one of the better secondary guys. But just a loaded group back there that we haven't even got to see yet. I don't know. Why would we see it this week? Would we even see it against Rutgers? Like, when do we see Michigan at full strength? This is another thing I was asked about today when I joined Jamie and those guys on their show. I'm like, dude, I don't know. I don't think you're going to see it this week. I don't know if you're going to need it next week. I know Rutgers has been pesky in the past, but I don't know. It's like, Chris, Jamie actually said some stuff today that really kind of changed perspective for me a little bit. I mean, I've been kind of whining about this a little bit, or, thinking like, God, if you got the, if you've got your horses, man, play them, get them out there, let them run. But Jamie was just so adamant about making sure that this team is complete and whole and healthy come November, that what does it really matter right now if you're winning? And I mean, it's not very fun to watch. It's not super awesome to report on. I mean, like, I'm not trying to dog on, but I don't care when Keyshawn Harris plays more snaps than anybody on defense. I just don't.
You got a real problem with Keyshawn Harris, it sounds like.
Well, it's because he's in there and Will Johnson's not. I mean, like, that's what I'm saying. It's not a.
But he's getting. Listen, if they need to call on him later in the season, though, that's going to be something that these reps are going to matter. And I think even Grant Newsome said it today. When talking about Colston Loveland and kind of the snap count and AJ Barner and how that's all working out. And he said he's learned some things from last year and how much they played Luke Schoonmaker and the toll it took on him and the condition he was in physically towards the end of the season. And so I think these guys understand that. And we talked about it before. You and I could be coaching the first 3-4 weeks of the season and Michigan is going to come out with a W, but getting these other guys some valuable experience so that as the season goes on, if you need to call on them, you can. I don't view it as a bad thing. Does it make for the most interesting, style of play? Does it make for the biggest, blowout on the scoreboard? No. But at the end of the day, Michigan is doing exactly what they need to do, which is taking care of business, winning football games, keeping their key guys healthy, and moving on to the next week. And so I think this is a smart play. This is a team that fully intends on making a run at a national championship. And if they're going to do that, you're going to need Rod Moore. You're going to need Makari Page. You're going to need Will Johnson. You're going to need Blake Corum. You're going to need all those guys. And so, right now, I don't really have a problem. Like I said, not the most interesting visually, not the most exciting brand of football, but it's getting a W. And I guarantee if Michigan's raising the national championship trophy at the end of the year, we're not going to be like, what, this was incredible. Those first 2 weeks, though, were kind of a down. Nobody's going to give a shit at that point.
Really wish Colston Loveland would have had more snaps than Barner through those first 2 or 3.
The only thing ruining that for this for me is the rushing output against ECU. I mean, it just.
And I straight up asked Grant Newsome about that today. It was my question. I said, through the first 2 games, transfer guy AJ Barner is playing more than Colston Loveland, who's been deemed as one of the best tight ends ever, or whatever words Jim Harbaugh used. They were very, he praised him in a major way. And I thought his answer was good. He said exactly what he said exactly what you just pointed out. He wants to watch the snap counts. He wants to make sure guys aren't spread too thin. And yeah, it doesn't matter right now. It really doesn't. Get some of these other guys some reps. Get Barner a little more comfortable with playing with a new team. Yeah, it's not a bad thing, but I think I know I was saying it. I'm like, look, dude, Colston Loveland's one of your best 11. Why isn't he out there all the time? Well, this is why. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, that sucks. It's not very fun, but okay, that makes a lot of sense actually. And hopefully he's operating at damn near 100% come late November. That's the plan and that's the goal. And so, I think Michigan looks at that like, whew. We dodged a bullet against Illinois because we didn't have Blake and we didn't have Donovan in that game. We don't want to have that happen again. And then you don't have Blake down the whole stretch. And you beat up on Ohio State, you beat up on Purdue, but you didn't have him in the playoff. I don't know. There's a lot of I hate to admit it, but they might know what they're talking about. I think that's where I'm at right now.
I'm a believer in the process. And it's funny, just before we get into some of the fan stuff, we talked a lot on Monday, and I think fans in general have been talking a lot about the Michigan rushing attack. And it wasn't until I went back and looked at the numbers, I was surprised to see Blake Corum, the first 2 games of last season versus the first 2 games of this season, nearly identical. I mean, in 2022, for the first 2 games, he had 22 carries for 164 yards and 2 touchdowns. This season, he's got 25 carries, so 3 more carries, 153 yards, so 11 less yards, and 4 touchdowns, so 2 more touchdowns. So nearly identical from what we saw out of Blake Corum last year through the first 2 weeks, and he ended up being a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. Now, obviously, the biggest drop-off so far has been Donovan Edwards. He's about 50 yards less than what he was at this point. He found the end zone twice through 2 weeks last year, hasn't found the end zone yet. But when you talk about a guy like Donovan Edwards, a 50-yard difference in 2 touchdowns, you're talking like that can change on 2 carries. That can change on 3 carries. And so it's not like they're that far off. I looked at those numbers and I was like, maybe the rushing attack isn't as bad as we thought. Not as good as we expected it to be, but certainly not as bad as I think a lot of us made it out to be when you really look at the numbers and compare it to what it looked like last year.
And I think it would have been Blake's 3rd game of the year last year was when he had his 5 touchdowns.
Exploded.
So obviously that helps pad the stats a little bit, but he's off to a great start. JJ's off to a great start. Roman Wilson is off to a great start. Donovan, not so much, but like you said, I mean, that's your 1B. I know they basically have 2 starters at this point, and he has split out wide a little bit more this year than we've seen in years past. And so you just hope that, eventually everything gets lathered up and gets working and moving how you want it to. But I'm going to take 2 questions at a time right here because I think it fits right in with everything that we're saying right now. The easy one right here, Tom Judge, when is Will Johnson going to play? And then Joey Clayton or Clater, I guess it says. Why is Jake Thaw the punt returner? Do you think someone else will be doing that as to get into Big Ten play? Talented guy. Yes, I like it's the same thing. Do you need somebody better than Jake Thaw back there right now? No, you don't. It's not very cool. I didn't think he made the best decision. He's clearly not as shifty or fast as Tyler Morris or Omarion Walker or basically anybody you want to name in the skill rooms.
Roman Wilson.
And the same thing with Will Johnson. I asked Chris on Monday, why the hell did he play 8 plays? I don't know. Why not? Get him out there, get one bead running down his head, and then you take him out. I mean, it's not awesome to watch, and I don't know if other teams approach it this way, but this is it feels like an NFL more kind of approach. And Jim Harbaugh has that's what it is.
It very much feels like preseason football.
Yes. You don't want to play your guys if you don't have to. You don't want to put a bunch of miles on them if you don't have to. And when the game is at hand and 30 is pretty much just as at hand as 60, take them out. And again, it's not exactly what I always want to watch, but if I'm in the position of those coaches, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. And today is really like the first day that I've been able to just compute all of that in a way that I'm like, that's what it is. It's smarter than probably the other way. I mean, really, because if one bad thing happened to any one of those guys, everybody would be up in arms.
Remember what happened with Ronnie Bell against Western?
Yeah.
Was it week 1 or week 2 that happened?
One.
Week 1. How many people were questioning, why would you put Ronnie Bell in that situation? Why would you do this? Why would you? And I just think I think you make a good point, Brandon. The more you look at it and the more you understand what this team has and what the ultimate goal is, compare that to who the competition is. Michigan is winning convincingly. They're getting everybody out healthy. Key guys are getting reps. They're getting the guys that are playing the depth positions more reps. I just think what they're doing is building towards something bigger that they're going to need to utilize in the latter part of the season. And it's just going to be interesting to see how it plays out. They clearly have a strategy. They're going to roll with it. They're comfortable with it. And I think we've seen enough from this Michigan football program over the last 2 years to trust in their process, because damn it, it's worked pretty damn. I mean, how many Big Ten games how many games, regular season games, have they lost over the last 2 years?
I know. Yeah. I mean, you can't argue any of the results. You can't, obviously losing to TCU. That's really been about it. Like seriously 2 seasons worth of ball. And that's about the only one where you're like, never should have happened. Yep. That's it. Going back to
even that Michigan State game, they had to deal with Kenneth Walker. That was a good team at the time. So like, even though it was heartbreaking, it wasn't a head scratcher. Like you could see, like Kenneth Walker was elite. The TCU game, that was a head scratcher. That's really the only one that I think you can kind of look back on and say, yeah, that never should have happened, played out the way that it did. And it did.
Well, I was going to say, you know why? Because they won all the rest of them. That's
true.
Those are the only losses.
Exactly.
Georgia, and then Georgia in the playoff in 2021. So yeah, it's funny how that works, right? It's like, oh yeah, you win every game and things are not too bad. That's a pretty good one. Oh, that's why Nick Saban's been doing that all those years. You just it's like Happy Gilmore when he gets that hole in one on like his second. He's like, I'm just gonna hit it in the first shot every time.
It's gonna do that every time.
Let's that
17 game home winning streak, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're on right now. I mean, and that's going back to 2021. Pretty solid.
Yeah, pretty solid. All right, Nick Angelucci. Thoughts on Harbaugh's comparison, Andrew Luck and JJ? I'm okay with it. I mean, Andrew Luck was a much bigger.
That's a great
prospect.
question.
Yeah, that's a great question. See if I had the button.
God damn it, we need that board.
He was a more polished, more no-brainer type of NFL prospect. But in terms of like what they do and what they're good at and their mental makeup and their leadership and being a good teammate, I can see it. It doesn't feel like a stretch. Again, Andrew Luck was viewed as like the odds-on number one favorite pick, for a couple seasons, and it ended up playing out that way. And he was really freaking good in the pros until he, kind of unexpectedly retired. So I don't really think it's much of a reach. Harbaugh kind of has a tendency to do this sometimes.
I was just gonna say, I'm over the comparisons, Brandon. I don't want to hear any more goddamn comparisons. I don't want to hear who were they comparing to Deebo Samuel? Was it AJ Henning? The way they were going to use AJ Henning one year, and then it was the Dan Villari comparisons.
That's my favorite one. It was. Hill.
Yeah, I don't want to hear any more comparisons. Like, these guys are who they are. I get why Jim Harbaugh does it. Right, AJ Henning compared to Deebo Samuel, and then never even saw the field. It was like, I don't understand it. So do I mind the comparison? No, because I think some of the traits are similar, good leaders, whatever. I don't need the comparisons anymore. I mean, JJ is who he is. Let's just leave it at that and stop making these comparisons, because when you do that, it sets the expectation that they're going to be, similar to these guys. When things transpire and play out, that's not always the case. And so I think who the hell did he compare Dan Villari to? Taysom Hill?
Taysom Hill, yes.
I mean, we got to stop.
Alex.
And listen, and if Alex Orji is going to be one of the greatest punt returners ever in Michigan football history, or kick returners or whatever, he kind of has to be on the field to do that. And haven't seen him do that yet.
He's some mix of Devin Hester and Deion Sanders and Mel Gray for you Lions fans out there. He's a good mix of those three guys. We're just waiting till we really want to see it. Yeah, so stand over there, 10. We'll give you a call in a little bit. Whatever. I'm with you. I mean, Eric All, best tight end to ever play here. Now Colston Loveland, best. I guess I could back up a little bit and say that's a little bit where the fuel comes from when it comes to my fire for wanting to see more of these guys, even though in hindsight and in perspective, it's probably smarter to not play them too much. Okay, I get it. Don't play Colston Loveland if you don't really need to. You don't want to get him hurt. You don't want to wear him out. It's a physical position. But it's hard. Head coach is saying he's the best tight end to ever play at Michigan.
Yeah.
Cool. Then why is he playing less snaps than the jumbo offensive lineman? It's hard for me to digest that commentary. And I think that's where that comes from. But if I can just calm down a little bit and think about the big picture, it does make a little bit more sense. All right. P. Maximus from the YouTube page. Are you surprised that Miles Hinton has been named the starter when Ladarius Henderson supposedly has a higher draft stock? Well, first of all, I'd be curious to see where that was from because I had heard that, Henderson has these NFL grades, but it's probably at guard because that's where he's played most of his football was at left guard. Yes, he has some left tackle starts at ASU, but many more of them were at left guard. And I'm sorry, you're not unseating Trevor Keegan or Zach Zinner at guard. So he's kind of the odd man out. I thought maybe we'd get a look at him at left tackle since he has played there before, but these coaches are going to put the guys out there who have looked the best. And usually in practice, you can tell which guys should be on the field. And so I guess maybe on what I thought they were before we ever even saw them or ever even had them on campus, I'm maybe a little surprised that Henderson didn't crack the lineup, but not considering that he's probably a guard, he's behind two really good ones.
I can tell you, I'm not surprised having been within a close proximity to Miles Hinton that he's a starter on the offensive line. I mean, the dude is a physical specimen, and I think that Sharon Moore was pretty clear in that the people he's got there in those starting positions, he's confident in, and they're playing the best in practice, and that's going to continue to be the case until somebody else unseats them. And so, no, not surprised by the way that any of this has played out. Figured Drake Nugent would be the center. Figured Carson Barnhart was going to be, earn a starting role. Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinner, obviously those guys out there. So it pretty much played out the way I thought it would play out.
Yeah. All right. Well, Chris is going to get a different view than I am, but we will probably see the new LED lights this weekend. It'll be the night game. After halftime, it'll be 9:00.
If not now, when?
Exactly. I am curious to see how it looks because, I don't know if I've seen it with blue and yellow lights before. I've seen several schools. I feel like they're all red. I've seen the red, Nebraska did the whole red out the crowd. I've seen it at Georgia. I think Bama has the LED lights that flash when they score a touchdown and stuff. I don't think I've seen a blue and yellow display. So I am a little bit intrigued to see how that looks. Chris, I know you're going to be right down there in it, dude, getting cooked by the new light. What do you think?
I'm excited. We got a taste of it last week. They did the light show during Mr. Brightside. I would imagine it's probably going to be something similar. But I mean, this is why you install things like that, is to make use of it during a night game. So I am excited to see what it does because honestly, Michigan Stadium is such a special place. And I know that everybody loves the tradition, but I'm also a big fan of, adding modern elements into something like that. And we've seen all these things happen around college football, the utilization of some of these colored LED lights. And I think it just really takes the fan experience to another level. So I'm really, really excited to see what they do with it under the lights. First night game of the season. Gotta imagine they're going to do something pretty special with it.
Yeah, it should be pretty cool. I mean, it was cool seeing them dance and flash last week, but it didn't change anything. And I'm curious to see because the red really spills out over people. Yep. I don't know if yellow will do that. Blue, I feel like could look pretty cool. So yeah, we'll see. That'll be neat to see how it looks and how they're used and what they decide to do with them. Tom Judge, is Cole Cabana not him? Well, seeing as how he hasn't played a snap yet, I'm not sure we can really say he's been hurt. Sorry, going back to fall camp, he was a little dinged up. I think, has he been ruled out or questionable the last couple? I think he was on the injury report. I think there's zero judgment on him so far. I don't know,
Yeah,
I didn't have a high expectation for him as a true freshman, given the running back room. But I
thought he'd get some run in special teams, but it seems like Michigan's got guys that are, experienced and able to fill those roles. And if Cole Cabana is working through something, which he clearly is from the offseason, again, same approach. Would it be cool to see him out there and see how good he is? Sure. For guys like us, is it necessary at this point? Absolutely not. Wouldn't be surprised. I don't think you're going to see much Cole Cabana this year.
Yeah, doesn't look like it. Redshirt him. He's not the biggest dude in the world. Get him a little stronger. Put a little meat on his bones. That's not an abnormal development for a freshman running back when you've got a pretty loaded room. I mean, to go that route, especially if he hasn't been 100%. So, Todd Frigo asks, where has Jeff Percy been? Seemed solid last year and scarce so far this year. I think it's just a matter of depth. I mean, he started one game last year in. His name has escaped. Ryan Hayes' absence. Started one game at left tackle, and that was pretty much it. It was a fill-in thing, and now he's back to being a depth guy for now. And you've got these three transfers. Obviously, one didn't end up winning the left tackle job, but by filling the right tackle job, you were able to move Carson Barnhart over to the left side.
Yeah,
I don't think it means anything that we're not seeing Percy. I think he's just another guy working on getting bigger and stronger, and eventually he might be the guy at left tackle.
Right. And I mean, you've got other guys like Trente Jones, Giovanni. You've got other guys that I don't think there's anything wrong. It's just they have so much there up front. And I know people are questioning, like, they're not getting a good push on the running plays, and things don't seem to be working. But I think they're trying to work that stuff out. And again, when you look at the numbers, it's not all that different. Yes, I get that it was supposed to be better this year than it was last year, but you're also trying to work in a couple new guys. I'm just not worried about it. And a guy like Percy, I think, Brandon, during the offseason, you and I were kind of talking about how this might settle out. And just based on his measurables, how big he was, I think you and I had him as like a potential starter on the offensive line. Obviously, hasn't worked out that way, but I wouldn't be surprised if at some point this year, I mean, we saw it with Trevor Keegan last year. Mm-hmm. We saw it with Trente Jones last year. He went down against Indiana. At some point, these guys are going to be called upon, and I think they're going to be more than ready.
There's just something about, like, I think it goes back to my, like, playing NCAA days on the video games. I have, like, a set, like, height, weight for every position. And Percy he's 6'8", 310. Like, that's my left tackle. And so that was part of it. He certainly looks the part. He filled in admirably for one game last year. Like I said, you mentioned briefly there, Gio El-Hadi. He played more than Percy did last year. Now he's kind of an odd man out too, just because of who's back and who's still in there and the position of the transfers and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't think there's anything at all remotely to be concerned about. It's just, along the offensive line, that's typically where you play like your bigger, stronger, older guys. And Percy's, just not really one of them right now. He may actually be, is he the same class as Barnhart? I think he's a year younger. Regardless. Percy? Yeah, regardless, I think he still has some time to potentially become the guy at left tackle. I don't think there's anything to worry about there. Rob Lucio, former Indiana quarterback. Connor Bazelak, very close to Ballsack. I'll take that as a potential pronunciation. Yeah, he'll be the starter for Bowling Green. He was at Missouri first, then transferred to Indiana. Now he's at Bowling Green. So
how about that, by the way? Football. Two guys that were teammates last year facing off in the big house. You got Jack Tuttle now with the Wolverines, Bazelak with Bowling Green. Pretty cool.
Yeah, we'll see what will they is Tuttle supposed to get some run tomorrow? He's hurt maybe. I don't know. We'll see.
They made it sound like he was going to be good to go, but again, like if this guy is potentially your legit backup quarterback and he's working through something, is there really ever a need to play him against Bowling Green? Probably not.
Yeah. Brian Hornacek, any relation to Jeff? Curious on my end here. Jeff Hornacek, legendary shooting guard.
Talk about drip.
Drip anyway,
out.
Do we think that part of the issue with Donovan Edwards is that there's too much on his plate right now, needs more time for taking on a bigger chunk of the playbook with his role as, I assume you're alluding to, playing more receiver and splitting out a little bit more? I don't think that has anything to do with it. It's not like I don't get the sense that he's like doesn't know what to do. It just hasn't been there for him yet. I mean, we talked about it on Monday. Blake Corum's dad said it's not Donovan's fault. Like, if the running back gets the ball and he's getting hit in the backfield, like, there's not a lot they can do about that. And that's happened, and the holes haven't been there. And I don't know. It's hard to explain when we remember how it looked last year so many times for these two guys. But I personally don't think that has anything to do with it. I don't think those two things are related.
No, it's been tough sledding for him. It's been a shoestring tackle there. He's usually, when he takes the handoff, he's taking contact pretty quickly. There's not a lot of time to sort of make any decisions. And I think part of that is the offensive line working through some things. I think part of that's what the opposing defense has been doing, which is loading the box and doing everything they can to slow the rushing game down. So it's a combination of things. I don't think it has anything to do with him having too much on his plate. And I think with Donovan Edwards, look, we saw it last year. We saw it against Penn State. We saw it against Ohio State. We saw it in the Big Ten championship game when he was, Big Ten championship player of the game. This guy is a big play waiting to happen. The fact that we haven't seen it through, I mean, look, 6 carries for 9 yards. I don't need to say that's unacceptable. Donovan Edwards knows that's not acceptable no matter what's going on. I think that those things are going to get figured out moving forward. And for me, when it comes to Donovan, it's only a matter of time. And you'd like to see it happen the first 2 weeks, but I certainly don't think it speaks to a bigger issue.
Chris, I know you're going to love this one because I feel like you've been saying it for a little bit now. Do we think that Ohio State catches an L against Notre Dame in South Bend?
They sure do. They sure do. I can't, we've talked about this a little bit, and then heading into the season, preseason, you're like, okay, well, maybe Ohio State's going to come out and they're going to look like Ohio State. They just, they don't have that same aura that they've had, early under Ryan Day and certainly under Urban Meyer. And then you go Jim Tressel, like they just don't have that feel to them. I think you're going to go into South Bend. It's going to be a difficult environment. You've got a starting quarterback who really was like, is he your starter? Is he not your starter? You had the fan base split on it. You've got an offensive line that's got some question marks.
Answer me this question, solid. Chris. I know they haven't played in a little while, but when's the last time that Notre Dame had the better quarterback than Ohio State?
It has to have been a while.
Been a minute.
I mean, but okay, you could say the same thing about Michigan too.
No question.
And that's certainly the case. And I think that just speaks to where Ohio State is at. And look, you got to give Ohio State their flowers as much as we hate them. They pretty much ran the Big Ten for the better part of 2 decades. It's inevitable that shit like this is going to happen. You're going to have a season like this. Like, it's just that's the way things work. And the way things are probably going to work for the Buckeyes this year is 3 or 4 losses, and including one in Ann Arbor at the end of the year, one coming up in South Bend. I think they lose to Penn State, and there's another game on there. I can't remember the exact schedule that I think is going to be losable. So
was it at Wisconsin, perhaps, maybe?
At Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not quite what I thought they were, but you still got to go to Camp Randall. The crowd's going to be up for it, and anything can happen. I just think Ohio State is going to have a very humbling year this year, and I think it starts with Notre Dame. And I don't think it's even going to be a close game. I think that's going to be a pretty convincing loss in South Bend.
And I've said it a couple times now, Michigan and Notre Dame are not all that different. You've got a really good running game. You've got a poised veteran quarterback who can make all the throws. You've got big dudes up front on both sides, a couple NFL guys sprinkled in here or there. I mean, they've got a team this year. They look pretty solid. And they've improved in areas where they needed to improve, and they're kind of built like Michigan. And clearly, Ohio State has a problem with that build. It's been evident the last 2 years. So, yeah, that'll be that's next week, I think. Right? It's not this weekend. It's the following
weekend. Yep.
Yeah, week 4. So that'll be.
I think they have Western Kentucky this weekend, maybe.
Okay, so yeah, should cruise for another one, but then they got a tough one in South Bend. Zach. Welcome to the legitimate question party. Is Will Johnson 100%? I don't know. I thought he was. I really thought he was like good, and they're like, or maybe like he was hurt and now he's better, but they don't want to re-aggravate anything, so they kept him out completely in week 1. He was going through warm-ups again in week 2, looked fine. I couldn't watching him. I'm like, I can't even tell what's hurt on the kid. He looks fine. And then he didn't play. And then he did play. They put him in the maybe 3rd or 4th series second or third series for 8 plays, and then he didn't play again after that. So I don't really know what to make of his percentage per se, but it clearly looks like he can go if you need him to go. Like if you had to cover Marvin Harrison tomorrow, he would do it.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's where it's at. I mean, I think it's impossible to say from our seat where he is percentage wise, but I do think it's a huge product of who they're playing. The fact that he is coming off of an offseason injury. And I do, we talked about it on the Monday show. I think that's what the 8 snaps were for, was get him out there, run around, make sure, there isn't anything that feels like it's off, anything that feels too tight. And once you know that you're good to go, all right, come out and then get those other guys more reps. I think that's what Michigan's committed to. And you could see it particularly with guys in the secondary. So, again, if Will Johnson doesn't play against Bowling Green, I don't give a shit. If he's not playing against Penn State and Ohio State, then I take issue with it. So rest that guy as much as you got to rest him right now, because they're certainly going to need to rely on his talents in the latter part of the year. There's no doubt.
Yep. Going through some of these questions. Let's see. Injuries on defense, we've kind of talked about that a little. I think it's kind of the same boat for all of those guys. Like, because Rod Moore looked like he was fine too going through warm-ups. And Makari Page played in week 1, then didn't play in week 2. I feel like all those guys back there might be dealing with a little something, but if they really needed to go, I think they could go. That's just what it looks like to me, being there, in person and watching them during pregame warm-ups and stuff like that. Let's see. Will Johnson again. English we heard Chad Zolman. Thank you for the question on punt returner again. We heard Carmelo English's name I think didn't he get his hands on one? I think he's been back there and he got his hands on one and looked pretty good. He's pretty shifty. I mean, much more like what I would like to see back there. Much, got some good straight line speed, a little bit bigger, and can make people miss in the open field. Tyler Morris, I think, looked pretty good back there on one. Again, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. You don't want any of those guys hurt now. Does that make Jake Thaw the sacrificial lamb? I mean, maybe. You don't want another. You don't
Jake,
want Ronnie
get back
Bell.
out there.
Yeah, exactly. Coach, I can't see. It's fine. Yeah, you don't want another Ronnie Bell situation. That's. I mean, that was a big blow to your season that year, a couple seasons ago against Western Michigan. So yeah, I think it's going to be same thing. Rob, Samaj Morgan probably in that mix. I think Donovan Edwards even was returning some punts during pregame. Roman Wilson has done it during pregame before. So yeah, we'll see.
I've seen Alex Orji doing it during pregame. So
Cody, we talked a little bit about this on Monday. Chris, go ahead and go first. You were there on Monday. What did you make of Jim saying that his staff made a mistake with the quarterback rotation?
The first thing that stuck out to me was I was surprised to hear Jim Harbaugh say that. I mean, it was not that he's dishonest when he's up there, but that's like an insight that you typically don't get. Like, yeah, we made a mistake. I think it was when Tuttle went down. The first one that went out was Jaden Denegal, and then it kind of threw off everything. And the goal was to get Alex Orji in the game. And so I do think we talked about this. What's going to be the impact of not having Jim Harbaugh on the sideline, during this 3-game suspension? And we were like, well, it's going to be minimal because the guys know what they're doing. And, with something like that, you kind of do get some insight into, okay, it doesn't quite run the way it would run if Jim Harbaugh wasn't on the sideline. So, I think I think it was a dose of honesty. I think that those coaches are young. They're going to make mistakes. They're experienced, but, they were playing a role that they're not used to playing without Jim Harbaugh on the sideline. And I was happy to hear that there's nothing wrong with Alex Orji, that there isn't some sort of issue we're unaware of, that they genuinely want to get him on the field, because I think there are a lot of folks in the Michigan fan base that want to see number 10 on the field in some way, shape, or form. Now, I'm not comparing him athletically to Denard Robinson, but it feels the same way. Like when Tate Forcier was out there and you knew you had this incredible athlete on the sideline, and it was like, you got to find a way to utilize this guy. I feel like that's how people look at Alex Orji. Like, we know what type of athlete he is. I don't care if it's special teams. I don't care if it's backup quarterback. You got to find a way to get number 10 on the field and let him get some run, because I do think he's a playmaker.
Well, and it's pretty clear that the coaches feel the same way, because I don't know if I've ever heard of a quarterback returning kicks before. So they're trying to find a way.
The way he's built, quarterback, kick returner, linebacker. I mean, dude, you could utilize him in so many different ways. It feels like just get him on the field and give him an opportunity, and excited to see what he can do.
His older brother, who looks just like him, was a damn good linebacker for Vanderbilt. So yeah. I mean, I think some schools recruited him as an athlete and said, like let's get you here. You're 230, you can run. Let's figure out what your best position might be. And sounds like Michigan's kind of doing that after the fact a little bit because, if he can provide value, then you'd want to find where that is. I don't know if it'll ever be at quarterback. We'll see. Given where Michigan's at with JJ, he's got another year if he wants it. Then you've got Jaden Davis in the fold, and obviously Michigan working really hard on Bryce Underwood. That's not a great path for Alex Orji to earn snaps at quarterback, but
listen,
we'll see how that plays out.
Alex Orji is my new shit, I've already forgotten his name.
Andrell
Anthony. Oh my God, what a sad day when I can't even pull Andrell right out of the hat like that. Alex Orji is my new Andrell Anthony. I've got so much hope for the guy. Just want to see something happen.
This is a pretty funny one. Chris, if your phone rings and you looked and it's Mel Tucker on the caller ID, pick up or nah?
Ooh.
That's good.
I'd be a little concerned about what was happening on the other end of the phone, but I would pick up. I would want to hear from Mel Tucker. I don't want to have a conversation with Mel Tucker. I think he's an interesting guy. Of course I would pick up.
Mel? Was that a zipper? Damn it, Mel. No, don't. That's how I would start the conversation.
Are you kneading dough in the background? What is that?
That's how I would start the conversation, but yeah, that's a funny question. I'd probably answer. I'd be like, "What the hell is this? What's going on here? A little exclusive?
Are you tenderizing a steak right now? What are you doing, Mel?
Come on the podcast, Mel. Put your Mel. Anyway,
mac and cheese.
Wow, that's not. Did somebody say that? Did somebody comment mac and cheese?
Mel, are you stirring a giant bowl of mac and cheese right now? Yeah, what are you doing?
That's supposed to be reserved for the other gender, not.
Well, I mean,
it is. That's what they say. That's what they say. Yeah. I think we've talked about this before, but Michigan's going to wear the all blues in the big house under the lights with the new light display. Chris, is that your favorite combo they've got right now? The all blue on the blue on blue. It looks so clean, dude. They've wore it in some of their biggest wins too.
It does look so clean, but I got to be honest. We saw it a lot last year. I think we saw it more last year than we saw traditional Mace Pants blue top. I mean, they were rocking that a lot last year. For me, the top is still the Maze Pants blue top. But you know what? We've seen it a lot on recruiting visits. I want to see the blue pants Maze top. That's what I want to see. I want to see that combo come out. I just think that would look pretty incredible at home. But yeah, I mean, I like the all blues. Yeah.
Just because we haven't seen it yet. I'm with you.
We haven't seen it yet. We see it on all the recruiting visits. They're all rocking it, but we haven't seen it on the field yet.
Have they done any other combos on the recruiting trips that we haven't seen?
Oh, yet? Yeah. They've done some egregious, like the Maze top with the white pants. That's a no-go for me.
Well,
even the blue top with the white pants. Or I'm sorry, the Maze top, white pants, blue top, white pants. Actually, I think Mason
blue
Graham,
top, white pants.
I think Mason Graham on his recruiting visit did blue top, white pants.
Looking down the line, Jill, thank you for this question. Do we think that Michigan, if they lose to Penn State or Ohio State, could still make the playoff? We saw it last year. So with Ohio State, the roles were reversed. But yeah, I mean, I think that set the precedent for, it's happened in the SEC before. Obviously, they've had a couple of the best teams in the country for a while with Alabama and Georgia kind of trading places back and forth. And then last year we saw Ohio State kind of back their way in. And honestly, they were like a play away from making the national championship game.
That just would have changed everything.
I know.
It would have changed that field goal would have changed everything for us last season, the way that we looked at how that year played out.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I do think, some things have to, it's not all up to Michigan at that point or whichever team It is. They need some things to go their way. They need another team to beat another team or whatever. I mean, it's a little early to start, figuring out the math and stuff. Like that was easy at the point last year when it happened, and everybody was like, there it is. Ohio State's going to back their way into that playoff, and they did just that. So, yes, I will say it's possible. I mean, anything's kind of possible at that point. And then, damn, dude, then next year we got the 12-teamer. How about that, man? How about that?
Yeah, I mean, well, and I think that's why it's important for Michigan to get it done this year, because there's just going to be so many variables next year. But the second part of your question, Joe, we've talked about this quite a bit. It's Penn State. I mean, Ohio State, I said it earlier in the show, I look at them as a team that's going to lose 3, potentially 4 games this year. And I think that game at Happy Valley for Michigan is going to be, if they do have a game that they lose during the regular season, to me, the biggest threat is in Happy Valley. So my worried meter is certainly higher for Penn State. I think Michigan's going to handle Ohio State at home. I think you're going to see another 40 to 20 something type game, the same that we've seen the last 2 seasons. But I do think that I've seen in the comments, some people make a good point that if Michigan does lose one of these games, that, that's when their schedule will come back to haunt them a little bit, because they don't have a tough opponent in the non-conference. So I don't have any fear that Michigan's going to take care of business the remainder of the Big Ten schedule. It's really Penn State that worries me.
Yeah, that's you've been pounding that drum for a while now. I mean, and it looks even more validated. Penn State has looked pretty good. And Ohio State, I mean, the quarterback issue. I do expect Ohio State to be a lot better. They're going to continue to improve. They've settled on Kyle McCord now. There's no more battle. There's no more rotating guys in and out. So we'll see what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, if he comes out and throws 4 picks or something, who knows? I hope you're serious, Brian. I hope Jeff Hornacek really is your second cousin, because that's awesome. And now we have 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. We have 2 degrees of Jeff Hornacek on the podcast right now, and I'm excited about that. So I hope you're being honest and sincere. There's no way I'm going to know otherwise. So we'll just pretend that is legitimate. And hopefully it is. Yeah. Let's see. Well, kind of continuing on, how worried are you, Chris, about that Penn State game after 2 weeks of seeing both teams play, knowing Michigan's got to go to Happy Valley, knowing that they beat Penn State last year by running all over them, and now obviously the running game's been a little slow going this year.
But I remember what it was like the year before in Happy Valley, where Michigan needed, it was that Cade McNamara, Eric All connection that put it away for Michigan. I just think it's something about going into that stadium, going into that environment as Michigan. You know that the fan base is going to be up for it. And Penn State has a legitimate team this year. And so even when I did, we were talking about these things in the preseason, and I put out the article, I remember I wrote several articles saying, you put out your bold predictions. I said specifically Michigan, one of the predictions was Michigan will lose a regular season game. And my pick was at Penn State. Now, I also said I didn't think it was going to keep them out of Indy. I still think they're going to go to the Big Ten championship game. I still think they're going to go to the college football playoff. But I'm pretty damn concerned about that game in Happy Valley. And, I know that Michigan, I believe that they're going to be up for it. I believe they're going to be up for the challenge. But I also think Penn State's going to be up for the challenge as well. And that's going to be a full 4-quarter game. I don't see anybody pulling away. And typically when you get in a game like that and you've got a raucous crowd of 110,000 people behind you, willing your team to win, that's a tough place to win. And the Wolverines will be tested, no doubt.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the feeling for a while. And it's, Ohio State's always going to be Ohio State, but road versus home is big in college.
Different,
especially if the teams are good and they're playing for something, and we expect Penn State.
I mean, think about it. I was going to say, I expect Penn State and Michigan to be undefeated. And when those two meet, I think, isn't that game in November? I think it was October last year. I think it's November this year. It's later in the year. There's going to be a lot on the line when those two teams meet. That crowd is going to be hyped. Thank goodness for Big Noon Kickoff, Brandon.
Yeah,
because
still is James Franklin.
And it still is James Franklin. I get it, but it's not a night game. It's not prime time. It's not a whiteout. So Michigan dodged a bullet with that one.
I've done it before on here. I'm going to do it again. Remember when he mispronounced the new commissioner's name? I'd like to thank Commissioner Petitti for coming on out.
Said it with some force. I thought you were about to tell me you were going to go take a shit. I've done it once before on the program. I'm going to go do it again. I'll be back in 5 to 15 minutes.
We're about to pack this bad boy in, man. It's after 8 o'clock. We're coming up on 54
minutes. Wow.
Yeah, questions are petering out just a little bit, you know.
Yeah, November 11th. That's a late season.
Yeah,
that's
there you
a late
go. Season
matchup for them guys. So really, you've got what? You've got Penn State, Maryland, Ohio State. Is that it?
Yep. Just one game in between Ohio State and Penn State. It's a tough skid right there.
Watch out for that sneaky Maryland team.
I'm excited. Yeah, in between there.
No, I'm excited. I'm off that
train. I am excited to go back to Happy Valley. Had a good time there a couple seasons ago. Obviously, it was a great game.
Oh, we had a good time.
Want to go again? Yeah,
we had a good time.
Be another trip. But yeah, coming down to the end here. Is anybody? Thank you, Mike. I've been working on the James Franklin. A couple of people have told me it's pretty solid. Yeah, just really like to thank Commissioner Petitti for coming out, and yeah, that's how he said his name on the main stage at Big Ten Media Days. Pretty good. Yeah, 1,000 wins this season. That'll be the Maryland game, will it not? Is that the right one?
If everything goes according to plan, yes.
Yeah. So, that'll be. So you're telling me if they lose to Penn State, win number 1,000 will be Ohio State in the Big House
against the Buckeyes.
Wow. Wow.
Still not worth it.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I'd rather 1,000 come at College Park.
Yeah, that'd be nice. That would be nice. Well, Chris, I mean, do you have any closing remarks? It's not every day. I mean, usually we are just bombarded with questions.
Nobody cares. It's Wednesday. It's that Bowling
time.
Green.
We've talked about it. We have talked about it. It's a little snoozy out there. When it comes to Michigan football right now.
We need some sort of scandal. We need something to happen here to wake the fan base up a little bit. But yeah, like I said, I think this is the trade-off. When you have a really good team that has a really easy schedule early on, people are just kind of, they're waiting for. I mean, what game are you waiting for? What's the first game that you think is really going to tell what type of Michigan team? Let's look at the schedule really quick. What's the first game that we're going to know?
I know they blow, but I'm still just the tiniest bit of intrigue with Nebraska on the road and Matt Rule. I know they
really
a little bit.
I thought that was going to be it too, Brandon, but I might have to put. I mean, what, Minnesota's 2-0 right now. If it's not Minnesota. It's not. No, it's not. No, they're going to beat the shit out of Rutgers at home. That's homecoming. Harbaugh's game first back. That's going to be. They're going to handle their business. If it's not Nebraska, if it's not Minnesota, it's certainly not going to be Indiana. At Michigan State, bye week, home against Purdue. Do we really got to wait till November 11th on the road against Penn State before we find out what kind of team this is? I can't do that, Brandon. I cannot wait until mid-November until people get excited about this team.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, that's a great question.
Did it work? Did it play? It should have played.
It did play. Let's go with Minnesota.
Minnesota on the road, the fighting PJ Flex. Roll the boat, ski, go Gophers. Whatever the hell he does every time he speaks. God, that guy's annoying. He probably has a pearl necklace, doesn't he?
Oh. Handcrafted,
straight from the bottoms of Lake Minnetonka. Yeah, I don't know, man. We dealt with it last year. I mean, we were, Michigan was just rolling through teams, and we were like, nobody is going to care until XYZ.
What is this? Are you going out? Are you heading out? Like, are you going out in the town? What's happening here?
You never know, man. You never know. Thank you, Shane, for the little
appreciate it, Shane.
Mike, I really like that, Mike. Thank you. I've thought about how I really, really do love stand-up. I like watching it. I've always thought if I wasn't such a wimp, I have the worst case of stage fright ever when it comes to doing anything. I've often thought I would like to put a little bit together, maybe a little 10-piece, just a little something. I don't know. I like that, Mike. Thank you. Yeah, I did try to put it. What I was trying to do was avoid the cord, and I was like, no, I'll just go under. You know, we're all out here just trying to figure it out, man.
Live your life, Brandon. As Jim Harbaugh would say, do you. Do you, Brandon.
Do you, Chris, and you do you too, sir.
Hey, that looks like it could be my ass. By the way, that's my stomach.
Dude, did you?
I want there to be any confusion.
Did you draw that in with an eyeliner pencil? What is that line? That racing stripe,
dude, it's where it goes, man.
Look at my face. I'm like, Jesus. What is this? What am I looking at? Like, I'm just staring into the soul of your.
Well, what you're looking at is 220 pounds of pure man right there.
I've never seen a 4-mile long happy trail, dude. This is wild. Just wild behavior, dude, for a Wednesday. Yeah. Imagine if I was like, I randomly took the screenshot whenever I did. What if I would have been like, nah. That's great.
It is what it is. Who said it? Was it was Rob said it? Listen, this is peak male performance right here. You can either get on board or you can get left behind.
Chris, I'll have you know, I may have mentioned the 15-mile-an-hour mark to a couple people at the press conference today. A lot of doubters. Out there.
I'm sure there were. I'm sure.
So, we'll see. Good Lord, I'm getting off of here. Thanks, everybody, for paying attention to us. I don't know why you do, but I'm so thankful that you do.
Yeah.
And we'll be back on Friday night. Everybody take care. Have a good rest of your week.